to start this episode?
I just like the alliteration of that. I thought that would be funny.
Oh, it leaves me a little confused, but let's continue.
Okay. So I'm your host, Kevin, here with my wife, Aileen.
Hello again. Yes, very interesting start.
And here with our cat, Tom. He's jumping around here as well. You might hear him meow annoyingly.
Yeah, just disregard him if he ever does that.
So we're still in February 2025. And what episode is this? 4? Yeah.
Yes, it is episode 4.
Episode 4. So we wanted to...
Yeah.
No, it's episode 5.
Oh, yeah. Yes, it is episode 5. Oh, my mistake. Yes, you are right. I lose count very easily. So,
it's okay.
Yeah.
So my cat Tom, our cat Tom, is sitting on my laptop now. He's stepping on all my notes.
Very typical of him. He likes to invade our spaces.
Yeah, exactly.
But he does not like it when it is the other way around. So
yeah, exactly.
Very selfish cat.
So, like I said, we're still in February 2025. Still Black History Month, so we wanted to stick to that theme. So, the movie we decided to do.
Oh, before we get to that, actually, let me tell you, and there is one correction that I wanted to make. On episode 4 for Rush Hour 2, where he had George as a host, or actually as a guest, should I say, they one of them mistakenly started talking about Mulan because Chris Tucker mentions Mushu, and we all know that Mushu, the dragon, is in Mulan. So they mistakenly said that it came out in 99, and no, it did not. It came out in 98 because I remember when I went to watch it in Tijuana at one of the theaters there, and I remember because it was in Spanish, and so I know it was summer 98 because it was right before I started 6th grade. So, and actually, since Mushu is voiced by Eddie Murphy, this whole mention is very fitting because the movie that we are about to talk about is
Coming to America.
Yay.
From 1988. That's the right year, right?
It should be the right year.
1988. Okay, we got that right. I don't know if we should call it Bumming to America in honor of Briterion.
No, we should not.
Okay, so Coming to America. I love this movie. I've loved this since I was a kid. I didn't see it in the theaters, obviously. I would have been 4 years old, or maybe even 3 years old when it came out.
I would have been 1, so no way I would have watched it.
Yeah, so I didn't see it in theaters, but I remember seeing it just growing up. I don't know if one of my uncles had it on VHS, maybe not, but I remember seeing it on TV a lot. It would be on like USA Network a lot. USA Network is the shit. It's underrated. They showed a lot of good movies back in the day. I don't know about now because I don't have cable, but they showed really good movies back in the day. That was part of my film education, honestly, is the USA Network, Up All Night, Gilbert Gottfried, okay. And Rhonda Shear.
It is Gilbert Gottfried.
Yeah, I guess I was thinking about Godfrey the comedian.
2 way different people, whatever.
Yeah, but anyways, the USA Up All Night, they showed some dope movies, including another John Landis film, American Werewolf in London. That's where I saw that for the first time when I was a kid. But yeah, I would see. I saw Coming to America a lot on there, maybe a lot on TBS too. Wherever they played comedies, and I would see it, and every time it came out, I'd be like, yes, like, I fucking love this movie, Coming to America. And I just, when I saw it as a kid, it was like, oh, obviously I know who Eddie Murphy is, but then I was like, oh, I know who Arsenio is too, and it's weird that he acts in this, because I haven't seen him act in anything else, really, Yeah. So that was cool. And, yeah, like, and you hadn't seen it, right?
No, I had not until you showed it to me. Maybe about, I would say, maybe about maybe 14, almost 15 years ago.
Yeah, I think it was on Netflix. Like when it first started streaming, and I streamed it from my Wii, my Nintendo Wii. Believe it or not.
Oh, yeah, way obsolete. Even then, it was already getting kind of obsolete by then.
Yeah, I was kind of like I was just using it to watch Netflix at that point. I didn't have a PlayStation or a Fire Stick yet at that point, so we were using the Wii. And I know you always like watching comedies, so I was looking for some comedies we could watch. And you said you never saw that before, so I was like, oh, you have to see this. This movie's
Yeah.
hilarious.
Well, yeah. For those of, if you don't know, most of the time I like to watch comedies because a lot of times I feel like I need something to pick me up. So yeah, if you want to recommend me a comedy, just a good one. Like, don't recommend me some of the really ridiculous ones.
Yeah, not his stupid shit. Um,
Well, he's not the only one who has gone that route. So
so I guess we can kind of get into talking about the movie. Um, so we'll do our obligatory Wikipedia description. So Wikipedia describes this as follows. In the wealthy African nation of Zamunda, Crown Prince Akim Jafar grows weary of his pampered lifestyle on his 21st birthday and wishes to do more for himself. When his parents, King Jaffe and Queen Aeolion, present him with an arranged bride-to-be, Akim takes action. Seeking an independent woman who loves him for himself and not his social status, Akim and his best friend slash personal aide, Semi, travel to the New York City borough of Queens and rent a squalid tenement in the neighborhood of Long Island City under the guise of poor foreign students. So yeah, that's your obligatory Wikipedia description.
disclaimer: don't always believe everything that gets posted on Wikipedia, because anyone can edit Wikipedia.
Yeah, but I mean, I've seen this movie, so I mean, I could vouch that that's a pretty accurate description.
I'm just saying in general.
Yeah,
but no, but it is a pretty accurate description.
I remember looking at Wikipedia one time, just looking at France or whatever, and someone edited it or edited it. So the first sentence about France was a land of gay people or something. So it shows you how stupid people.
Yeah, I mean, they were obviously trolling.
Yeah. So I mean, in some of the research I did, I guess supposedly the movie was going to be called The Quest initially.
I don't know how that would be fitting, and it sounds too vague, honestly.
Yeah, like the quest for the perfect woman. Yeah, I'm glad they changed it to Coming to America.
Yeah, it's more fitting, definitely. Even though I'll get to the name, but America should not be a term to call the US, because when you look at the entire continent, it really is America. So when people want to refer to the US, they should just call it the US, or even whatever other term that they can come up with. But it's
Gringoland.
Yeah, Gringoland.
Yeah.
Sure, why not?
Yeah, because you're saying both continents are America.
Yeah, right? Exactly.
So, yeah, they need to change that. But The Quest ended up being the name of this horrible Jean-Claude Van Damme movie from 96 or 97. Which I saw that in the theater, and that's not one of his best.
Well, I'm surprised you even saw it in the theater.
Well, I was a fan, but his earlier ones were better. By that point, he sucked. It was like he was trying to redo Bloodsport, but didn't have the charm of Bloodsport, if you want to call it that. So it's cool how like the movie starts off and they kind of play with the Paramount logo. I love when movies do that, when they like play with the logo of the studio. Yeah.
For sure.
I feel like more movies should do that. Maybe every movie should do that. Like when they play with the Universal logo or the Columbia logo.
Yeah, no, usually that's kind of like the way to get someone to start watching a movie.
Yeah. And the director of this is John Landis, and he was the man. I mean, I mean, he hasn't directed in a while, but I'm sure he still has great chops as a director. But he was on a hell of a run at the time. He did Animal House, that was like 75. He did Blues Brothers, then American Werewolf, as I said. And then he did the Thriller video for
Oh
Michael
yeah,
Jackson because
of course.
Michael Jackson really
Well, I
liked
mean,
American Werewolf.
yeah. Well, he pretty much turned that into a short film. So.
Yeah, basically, yeah, like the first like film music video, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then he did Trading Places with Eddie Murphy, and
Mm-hmm.
that's what began their relationship. And I guess Trading Places was originally going to be called Black or White, which is a weird title.
Yeah, I agree.
So Landis hated that title, and he told someone to come up with a better title, and someone came up with Trading Places, which he really liked. But what's funny is that Landis eventually did direct something called Black or White, which was the Michael Jackson video. The thinking about my baby, it don't matter if you're black or white. He ended up directing that, so it's funny.
Yeah, and he ended up featuring quite a few people who later became pretty well known, didn't he?
Oh, where?
Well, on that video.
Oh, well,
I know he had a Tyra Banks on it.
Oh yeah, she's one of the morphing faces.
Yes.
Yeah, which was that's the thing. I remember seeing that video when it aired. So it aired like right after. For some reason, they were doing this thing where they were airing all these Michael Jackson videos on Fox, like on Sunday night. Like so, it aired like right after In Living Color, or right before In Living Color, or right after The Simpsons, or right before The Simpsons. It was like in the little sweet spot between Simpsons and In Living Color.
Yeah.
I remember being a kid watching that. Because I would watch that every Sunday. I would watch Simpsons and In Living Color. And they were like, Michael Jackson, Black or White, or whatever. I'm like, okay. So all of a sudden this video comes on, and I was like, oh, this is pretty cool, you know? And then you see a little part where Macaulay Culkin starts rapping, and I was like, oh, that's funny. I mean, obviously I love Macaulay at the time.
Oh, yeah.
Sure. You know, I got to see Home Alone 1 and 2 in the theater. So I was, you know, he was the man to me, and his name was Kevin. So everything worked out. He was my namesake.
Shameless self promo.
Yeah. So I loved Macaulay, and so seeing him rap there, it was kind of cheesy even at the time, but I was like, okay, that's cool. And then at the end of that video, you start seeing Michael, like after those morphing faces, you see John Landis come in and like say, "Oh, good job, cut." Then that kind of ends the video, but then you see Michael walk off. And he goes into this alleyway where he's like beating the shit out of a car, and he sees like some KKK shit on the car, and he's grabbing his crotch a lot. To me, that was the best part of the video.
Oh my god!
And I think you can still see that part on YouTube, but it was like banned after that. You couldn't see that part on MTV or VH1 or whatever. But seeing that live at that time was just the shit.
But I mean, it is pretty sensitive.
Yeah, no, it was cool. And he grabs his crotch like 50 times in that like 2 minutes where he's like beating the shit out of the car. That's a little too much. Yeah, and then he like turns into a Black Panther and walks off. Yeah, it was weird, but I loved it. So anyways, yeah, so Landis was the man, but in the middle of that great run that he had, he kind of got canceled a little bit because he directed parts of the Twilight Zone movie. So he did this Twilight Zone movie, and in his sequence, it involved this like kind of older man who was having some like Vietnam flashback or something like that. So that actor Vic Morrow, he was actually Jennifer Jason Leigh's father, and he was supposed to be him rescuing a couple of Vietnamese children, and they had a helicopter in the shot, and so the helicopter crashed on them, killing them all. And
that's
so,
unfortunate.
I think his family and the family of the kids, they filed like wrongful death lawsuits. And
I know that. Yeah, I know they did.
So he had to deal with all that, and so even though he put out Thriller, and he got acquitted for that trial, he was kind of canceled a little bit after that. So they had the script for Coming to America. It was kind of floating around, and Eddie Murphy had these like kind of two sidekick guys who used to write for him on SNL. They wrote the script for Coming to America, and they're like, hey, we need a director who can direct this. And I guess Eddie Murphy felt bad for Landis because he was kind of canceled at that point, and he kind of felt like he owed him because he kind of kicked off his career as far as Trading Places. So he said something like, oh, I'll do him a favor. His career was fucked at that point, so I thought I'd do him a favor. That's like what Eddie said.
Well, that's pretty considerate of him.
Yeah. And it's funny because Landis was like, he heard that, and he's like, he thought he was doing me a favor? Like, he was kind of like, offended that he would say that. But I mean...
Well, in a sense, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, he was kind of canceled at that point because of this whole Twilight Zone thing. So um, yeah. But anyway, so let's get back to the movie. So um, we hear these African music, and we see after we see the Paramount logo, it kind of goes into the savannah of Africa, and it's we hear this nice African music. Kind of sounds like some Paul Simon Graceland type
Oh
of
my goodness.
music.
Yeah.
And basically we see it like a day in the life of this African prince, and it happens to be his birthday. It's his 21st birthday. We see him get up, and he's got
even though I think of 21st birthday, but he seems older to me than that.
He looks older,
at least especially for today's standards.
Yeah, I think he was maybe like 28 or 29 or maybe even 30 at that point when he did that. But we see him get up out of bed.
Yeah.
He's got the rat tail hair going on. And we see these flower girls. They they throw these petals everywhere the royalty walks. Like, so for him and his parents, they have to throw petals before their feet where they walk. And Garcelle Bouvet is one of the flower girls. Like, she was great, and she was from Spider-Man Homecoming. She was the mom of the love interest that he had. And then she was on Jamie Foxx show, and she was in my favorite R. Kelly video, Down Low, which I fucking love that video, and I love that song.
Oh, jeez.
we keep mentioning people who are canceled, but it just like everyone's canceled at this point, so you can't throw a rock without hitting someone who's canceled. Yeah, but
usually it's for a reason. So
yeah.
Not to be a snowflake.
Yeah.
But usually it is for a reason.
Yeah. But R. Kelly, Down Low, watch that video. That video is fucking the shit. And Garcelle Bouvet is in it. So we see him, he gets bathed by naked ladies, they brush his teeth for him, and it's funny. Like, they do everything for him.
Yeah, well, they're topless, but it's still a little too much to see.
Yeah, it's a bit jarring, I guess, when you just see that out of the blue in the first few minutes of the movie. And I remember Busta Rhymes kind of recreated this in his video. He kind of did an homage to Coming to America in his video for Put Your Hands Where My Eyes Can See, which is a great song. So yeah, the servants throw petals before him and his parents wherever they walk. And then we see the kind of the chubby guy who's kind of like their assistant, like liaison to him.
Yeah.
I don't remember his name, but he was cool. I wish he was in more stuff. I think he was in a few things at that time, but then I kind of stopped seeing him. But I thought he was great. So we see the opulence of the monarchy of Samunda, and his parents, James Earl Jones.
R.I.P.
Yeah, rest in peace.
Yeah.
And the actress who played his mom as well. She's passed away too. Yeah. Sadly. But yeah, they were great, and it's funny because it's almost like Lion King was just like, okay, let's just take those parents from Coming to America. Yeah, like they had no originality in their casting. They just ripped off Coming to America, basically. It's kind of funny. So we see see how rich they are, and
excessively, I would say.
Yeah. It's a fairy tale, but I guess I think we needed to see that at the time. Samunda, it's almost like Wakanda, in the 80s, basically.
Yeah, of course.
The wardrobe is pretty cool. They have some pretty cool stuff going on. The costume designer must have had a hell of a time on this film. There's thousands of people, the dancers and everyone.
Oh yeah, of course.
So we see Akeem talking to his father at that long ass table.
Yeah, like ridiculously long for a dining table, which I'm sure that they would use it to accommodate a lot of important people, considering that they were royalty, but it's still excessively long.
Yeah, exactly. And Akeem basically tells his dad, like, hey, I want some freedom, but they want to set him up with a woman to marry ASAP, since it's his 21st birthday. And it's funny, Akeem says, I've never tied my own shoes before. And his dad is like, I've tied my own shoes. It's a very overrated experience. Little funny little gems like that. And then we see Arsenio Hall.
Yeah.
He's his homie, his confidant. I'm sure he kind of grew up with him in Zamunda, and seeing him there, I guess I saw his show first. I was a big fan of his talk show. I thought it's one of the greatest talk shows ever, if not the greatest.
Yeah, I don't think I ever watched it.
I mean, that's a shame because it was great, and I would watch that a lot too. So I think I saw the show first, and then so seeing him, act in something, and he didn't have his goatee, and he looked different, and it was just like, oh, that's weird. Like, I didn't know he was an actor, like, so it was kind of jarring seeing him there, but it was cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, Arsenio Hall show. I know he tried to bring it back. It wasn't very successful. But times change. It's different. But his original show was amazing. He had tons of great guests. He had tons of great musical artists as well. Not just hip hop and R&B. He had like the first appearance of Radiohead was on his show. You know what I'm saying? Like,
which I find very interesting, honestly.
Yeah. So like his show is very groundbreaking, especially in the music sense. So and we see them fighting. They're doing kind of the Aikido, whatever the hell, karate sticks that they're kind of fighting with. Kind of judo-ish. And they're kind of having an argument, and it kind of just juxtaposes their fighting. Like Semi is like, you don't need a woman who has a mind of her own. You just need a woman to have sex with. You know what I'm saying? But
yeah, that's not the way it works.
But Akeem is like, no, I need a woman who does have a mind of her own. I think he just got bored with his whole life of being pampered. That he the grass is always greener.
Oh,
you know
yeah,
what I'm saying? But speaking of Arsenio Hall, the casting was great. The cast, was like they casted perfectly, and luckily this movie is great because it could have easily been horrible, like Soul Plane or something.
Yeah, I would not.
Like you could say Soul Plane has a great cast, but the movie's fucking horrible. But this is just a masterpiece.
Oh yeah, of course.
Like they kind of present the chick that he's gonna marry, and she has a cast of 1,000 dancers, basically.
Just to introduce her.
Just to introduce her, yeah, exactly. And so there's like this 5-minute dance sequence, which I guess was choreographed by Paula Abdul.
So, that makes sense.
Yeah. So, but it's a pretty cool dance sequence, yeah, tons of dancers, and like I said, the costumes are really great. Just to, just to introduce the chick. And then as she walks in after the dance, she kind of walks in slowly, like she's like Queen of the Damned or some shit, like, her hands out, and then the chubby dude is like, she's your queen to be. He sings. Oh it's funny because he sang it a cappella. Fuck it. Like he just no beat, no music. He just killed it.
Yeah, it was just a really over the top event.
Yeah. So then Akeem talks to her one-on-one, and he sees that she likes everything he likes.
Yeah, but she's just really trying to please him, not because she really likes everything that he likes. Like you could see that she really has no mind of her own. Like she's just being taught. She was just taught to be submissive.
Yeah,
basically.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a turnoff for him. He was hoping that she would be her own person, but she's just doing everything for him. And he makes her bark like a dog and hop on one leg.
And she does everything he tells her to do, like pretty much everything.
Yeah, and it's funny because his dad walks in right when she's hopping on one leg, and he's like, "Oh, great, you're getting along very well." Like he thinks they're getting along swimmingly because he's seeing that. So then he pleads with his dad. He's like, "Oh, please, let me take a trip to America for 40 days. And let me see what America has to offer. And his dad's like, oh, that's a great idea. You deserve some time to sow your royal oats. So yeah, 40 days in America, and then after that you come back and marry this girl. And he's like, kind of not looking forward to that, but he's like, okay, well, we'll see what happens. So him and Sammy are looking at the globe, the spinny globe, which I wish we had one of those. Like, I mean, we could probably find one easily, but I remember we had one when I was a kid, and I would always like spinning it around and like stopping it, looking at places on the map. It was always fun.
I don't think I ever had a personal globe. If I ever used one, it was usually at school.
Oh yeah, I mean, we had some at school, but I remember we had one at the house, like. And I remember spinning it, and then you stop it slowly, and then you could point out random places, so it was cool. Like, it's cool seeing him, how he had that. I mean, those were kind of common, I think, back in the day, not so much now, because,
but I still didn't have one, for whatever
Sorry,
reason.
we had one for whatever reason. I think it was probably like $20 at Fedco or some shit.
I miss that place.
Yeah. So, Sammy asked him, like, hey, so, like, if you go to America, it's so big, where are you going to go? You know what I'm saying? And he was like, well, he's like, well, you go to LA or New York? Those are the two biggest cities. So he's like, okay, well, let's flip a coin. So he flips a coin, Two-Face style. He's like, heads, New York, tails, LA. And then we see it lands on his face.
Oh, on his face, yeah.
Because he's on their money. He's like, okay, I guess New York. And then they're like, okay, so where in New York, And so they pull up New York on the globe, and they're like, well, you're going to be king, so you want a queen, so let's go to Queens then. You know what I'm saying? So I thought that was
very fitting.
I thought that was brilliant how they did that. It was genius. So then they take off and fly out to Queens, New York. And, he doesn't want to appear to be royalty. He wants to seem like a common man, but then we see he has shitloads of bags and jewelry, like coming into the airport, all his checked bags and jewelry.
Yeah, then why would you bring it with you if you don't want people to find that out?
I guess he didn't think of that at the moment, but it's kind of funny. And then what's funny, they're like, oh, we need a taxi. And so they're like, he stops in front of he goes into the middle of the road and stops the taxi. He's like, taxi. And then the guy's like, what the fuck? And he's honking. And so the guy who picks him up, his name is Jake Steinfeld or something. Jake Steinfeld or something like that. I remember him because it was weird too, because that's what was weird is when I saw this movie, it was like everyone was a celebrity, even like the C-list, D-list celebrities. Even that guy was a celebrity at the time, the taxi driver. Because when I would see him, he was on this thing called Body by Jake. So he did a thing on ESPN where he was doing like a workout show. That guy, that taxi driver guy.
I think I know. Wasn't that really big, like in the 80s, early 90s?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that guy would do that.
A lot of people were doing those workouts.
Exactly. So his thing was called Body by Jake or whatever. So when I saw this, I was like, what the fuck is the Body by Jake guy doing? And it's like, what the hell? Like, it was like astonishing how every little fucking person in the movie was like at least a minor celebrity. And it's funny because he keeps hearing fuck, and the guy keeps saying fuck you and fuck that, and then he's like, what does fuck mean? Just kind of, and then it just cuts. It's pretty funny. So they get to Queens and they see all kinds of crazy homeless people. Almost reminds me of when I almost got stabbed in the chest by some crackhead in the Bronx, waiting for the subway.
You're stretching it out a bit, but he was harassing you. Let me tell you.
I could have easily been stabbed in the chest.
And it wasn't in the Bronx. It was in Harlem. Okay. Correction. See,
it was uptown.
Okay. For all you listeners, I have to correct a lot of things Kevin says.
Well, that's what's funny about it. That's part of the entertainment value of it. But it was uptown, no less. Harlem and uptown. Harlem and Bronx are considered uptown.
Even though I think the Bronx is considered a different borough, so.
Oh, yeah, it is. But, yeah, they're considered like in the north side of New York. So then they get to the barber shop there, which is a kind of classic scene, and then the old men there having a boxing discussion, seeing who's the best, Joe Louis Muhammad Ali, and the guy doesn't want to call him Muhammad Ali. He wants to call him Cassius Clay.
Yeah, I remember that.
And then the Jewish guy is also played by Eddie Murphy. So a lot of those characters are played by Eddie Murphy
Oh,
or
as
Arsenio Hall.
or as he's usually known to do in a few of his other movies.
Yeah. So, and I guess he did that because he really admired how Peter Sellers would do that. Like in Doctor Strangelove, he plays like 3 different characters. So that's, I guess, what made Eddie want to do it. I think a lot of people thought it was just him being egotistical, like he wants to play all these damn parts or whatever. But it was really because, he admired like Peter Sellers, how he did that. And obviously the Jewish guy is rooting for the white dude in Rocky Marciano, and the other guys are pissed off about it. And who's the guy in the chair with the Jerry curl? Your boy.
Oh, jeez. Don't even get me started about him. Yeah, well, to find out that it was actually Cuba Gooding Jr.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I could tell because I could tell how he looks, but you had a kind of hard time figuring out.
Yeah, but looking at him, he does have that smile.
Right. And which you didn't like his casting in the O.J. Simpson show, right?
Yeah, so it was, an American Crime Story, The People versus O.J. Simpson. He looks nothing like O.J. Simpson. Hey, I know Ryan Murphy is friends with a lot of these people, and he wants to cast, those who are pretty well known, especially. But honestly, I don't buy him as O.J. Simpson at all. It's honestly, out of all the ACS seasons, that's probably my least favorite run.
Wow.
And mainly for that reason, honestly. I can't watch someone who doesn't even look remotely close to the person they're portraying.
Yeah, that's something that you're hung up on. The guy has to look exactly like him.
Not exactly, but at least somewhat resemble him. And I don't think he resembles him at all, even in the least bit.
Right. And I think I heard Ryan Murphy say, "Oh, he doesn't really look like him, but he kind of was able to get that like charm that he had, I guess, or like the likability of him that OJ had in his prime."
Yeah, I don't know. That's questionable.
Well, anyways, like I said, even the smallest parts in this are somewhat famous. You know what I'm saying? They ask around. They're like, "Oh, do you know where we can find an apartment here?" And they're like, "Oh, well, you can check upstairs." And so they knock on the landlord's door, and the guy comes out. And he's like, "What the fuck do you want?" With a cigar in his mouth, and that guy, I guess his name is Frankie Faison. He's a really cool actor. He's in White Chicks. He's like the head cop. He's like the chief of police in White Chicks.
Okay.
And I remember he was on this show in the 90s that I really liked. He was like on this Fox show. I forgot what it was called, but it was a really cool show. I would watch it a lot when I was a kid. Damn, I wish I knew what the name of that show was. I guess I can look it up, but but I really liked him from that. So to see him in this, I saw that show first, the 90s show, and then I see him in this, I was like, oh wow, he's really like grumpy in this. Whereas he was a really nice dad in the 90s show that I saw him on. And he shows them some apartments, and he shows them one where there's the tape around like some dead bodies that were there in the room, like there's yellow, there's caution tape on the door, and then a rat running by, and
and there's like, you can tell that there was a crime scene.
Yeah, exactly. And Arsenio Hall is grossed out, but Eddie says, "We will take the room." So they take the room. And you can see Akeem he's just really excited. He's really enthusiastic about the whole thing. He says, "Good morning, my neighbors," the next morning, and they're like, "Hey, fuck you!" And he's like, "Yes, fuck you too." It's hilarious. and then we see people in the neighborhood. They like took all their stuff, all the stuff they brought in from Africa. Like you see them wearing his like dashikis in the streets, and they're wearing his jewelry, and some guy tries to sell them their own stuff, like the stuff that they brought.
Yeah.
It's hilarious. And then they're like, oh, like, you know, we need to look like tourists. Like, let's buy, you know, New York type of clothes. And they come out and they're like head to toe New York shit. They look like fucking Spike Lee at a Knicks game. Right?
Oh my goodness.
Just
yeah.
everything, just like New York this, New York that, pins, everything. And they're walking by and they see a Soul Glow commercial. That's the first appearance of Soul Glow. The Jerry Curl spray, and it's funny how they made that ad, and I think they just wanted to make fun of the whole Jerry Curl
I'm sure
movement,
they did.
you know. But I think it's hilarious. And they walk by McDowell's, and you know, I guess John Amos, who plays the McDowell guy.
Yeah.
He I guess he used to work at McDonald's back in the day, so that's why it was like really good.
Oh,
you know?
okay. So
Yeah, Cleo McDowell, that's his name. Yeah, so it was like perfect casting. I think he was in a commercial, like, because he actually worked at McDonald's, and he was in a McDonald's commercial, so it was like perfect that he would be the McDowell's guy.
Yeah.
And so Akeem wants to look more American, so he goes to the barber shop, and he's like, "Come on, I want to look more American." And they're like, okay, and they just cut off his tail. And
yeah, that's all.
Yeah,
that's all they had to do.
He's like, perfect.
To which Sammy was very disappointed.
Yeah. He was sad about that. So then they go to the club and they have all these like speed dates, and they see all these weird ass chicks. Some chicks rapping. There's a few twins in the mix.
Yeah, the twins were very weird.
Yeah, both sets of twins. And then there's some chick. She's like, "I'm into the group thing," and Arsenio smiles widely when she says that. And their reactions are hilarious. But it's funny that they kind of prophesize speed dating, basically, because I don't think that was a thing at the time, but it became a thing later on.
Yeah,
speed dating. But that's essentially what they do at that club. And I love like their blazers and shirts in this. Like their fashion sense is really cool. Like these are the type of clothes I would wear to work. Like this, and the clothes that like Seinfeld would wear on Seinfeld when he was doing like the stand up stuff. Like those are like kind of what I try to go for fashion wise when I'm at work. Vintage ties, you know. That's my stilo.
Yeah, that I can see you live like that a lot in the morning.
Yeah, thank you. So then they kind of, you know, come out of the club depressed, and they go back to the barbershop, and you know, they're like, where can we find good women? And the barber tells them like, you can't find them at the club. You need to go to a church or something like that. And he's like, oh, well, I'm going to this church event right now if you want to come with me. So they go along with him, and they're at this church event, and the preacher guy, he's this over-the-top preacher, and he's played by Arsenio, and he does a really good job with, you know, his cadence, how he says things. It's like perfectly, you know, preacher dude-ish. And they're having like a beauty pageant, and it's sponsored by Soul Glow, just so happens to be.
Oh yeah, which you'll see that continuously throughout the movie.
Yeah, it's a running gag. And we see that he brings Randy Watson to the stage to sing, and hardly anybody claps. Nobody wants to clap. And he ends up singing a really good rendition of The Greatest Love of All by Whitney Houston, which I have to hear a lot at my work because it's like the school song, actually. And then my work will remain nameless. But I have to hear it a lot there.
Yeah, of course.
But he's hilarious. And that's Eddie playing Randy Watson, which I was shocked when I found that out, because to me, he looks nothing like this Randy Watson guy. Like, he kind of looks like the guys at the barbershop a little bit, but I thought this was just a genuinely different actor. I really didn't think that was Eddie. So when I found that out, I was shocked. But yeah, he does a great rendition. Then They can't take back my dignity. Yeah, I love that. And so the McDowells are also one of the organizers of the pageant, and they do like the catering and stuff like that. And so they invite Lisa McDowell, so Cleo's daughter, one of his
Yeah.
daughters, to the stage. And Akeem sees her come to the stage, and he sees how like serious she is. Like she takes it seriously, and he likes that. He's like admiring her already. It's like he kind of falls in love at first sight.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're passing around the donation basket, and then Eddie just like drops this whole wad of cash that he has. It's like hundreds, like maybe thousands of dollars in this wad of cash, and he just drops the whole thing. And Sammy looks at him like, "What the hell are you doing?"
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That he passes it around, and that's how you know he was in love at first sight. So then he's like, okay, we have to go to McDowell's, because he mentions McDowell's on Queens Boulevard. So they're like, okay, let's go to McDowell's. So they go to McDowell's the next day, and they want to get hired there, and they talk to Cleo, and he kind of explains the differences between McDonald's and McDowell's. Like they have the golden arches, we have the golden arcs, or like the stupid little differences.
Yeah, it's an obvious ripoff.
Yeah. But I mean, I guess they could get away with it because it's kind of like parody law,
Yeah, of course.
Kind of like how Nathan Fielder did Dumb Starbucks or whatever. But
his didn't exactly work that way.
His got shut down ASAP, sadly, because I thought that was a great idea.
And honestly, I wish he could have gotten away with it, because for those who don't know, I really do not like Starbucks. I mean, I would say I was never a big fan, but I accepted it. But with each time, I think it gets worse.
Yeah, I hate it too. So we see Eric LaSalle come in, who's Lisa's boyfriend, and he's a part of Soul Glow. He's like the Soul Glow heir. So Eric LaSalle, he's from ER fame. He was the original black guy on ER, basically. And he throws a milkshake at Akeem, and he's like, "Can you take care of this for me?" And hits him right in the fucking face. And Sammy's just kind of laughing his ass off at him. It's pretty fucked up.
Yeah, it's true.
But when I think of Eric LaSalle, I feel like he should have had a better career. Like he seemed like he would have had a career like Wesley Snipes or something like that. And ER was great. When he was on ER, everyone kind of became a star overnight on ER. Like Clooney and Noah Wyle and
of course
Juliana Margulies, like they all kind of became stars overnight. But then he left ER, and all I remember him doing was some BS movie called Crazy as Hell, and he's on the cover like looking like some demon or some shit, and it looked fucking horrible.
Yeah, it's either your career can have a turn for the better or for the worse. So
yeah. So
unfortunately,
I mean, I think he needed a better agent or something. He could have had a much better career. He should have had a much better career. And then I do remember him having a random ass role. He played like a Haitian on How to Make It in America in like one episode, a couple episodes, which I was a great show, but I was just what is it like? He only gets involved in projects involving the word America or something. What the hell's his deal?
Yeah, it's like no, just it's that's all I can say. No.
Yeah, he should have had a better career. And then so at McDowell's, you also see Louis Anderson. Yeah, that's cool. It's cool that he plays the cashier at McDowell's, and he was a comedian on the rise at the time.
Yeah, even though he had that one cartoon, and I thought it was a pretty dumb cartoon.
Yeah, I what I watched of it, I didn't like. I was never a Life with Louis fan.
I only watched it if there was nothing else going on, or if it just happened to be on that channel for whatever reason. Yeah. But I thought it was pretty stupid.
Even then, it sucked when I watched it. And I could still remember the damn theme song, because it would come on usually after like X-Men or Spider-Man, which I did watch religiously. And then it would come on and be like, Life with Louis. I'm like, oh, this fucking sucks. I need to change the shit. So when that theme song came on, I had to change the shit.
It's like drilling your brain.
Yeah. I don't know. There was something like too like white trashy about that cartoon.
It was white trashy.
Yeah, I don't know. It was, even for me at the time, it was too white trashy. But what's cool is on Netflix they have that show like the movies that made us, because they also did like the toys that made us, the
Yeah.
whatever that made us, the food that made us, whatever the hell. So
Yeah.
the movies that made us, if you haven't seen that, that's a really great series. And they did a really good episode on Coming to America, and they explain a lot of the backstory and the controversy and stuff like that. And so something I learned while watching that is Louis Anderson did a really good move. He saw he was at a restaurant and he saw Eddie come in with like an entourage, like a small entourage.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's like, "Oh, that's Eddie Murphy." And he's like, "Okay." He's like, he told the waiter there, he said, "Oh, like I'm gonna pick up Eddie's tab, like
Mm-hmm.
him and his boys." He's like, "But don't tell him I paid it until I'm gone. Like only when I leave, after I leave, then you can tell him I paid it." So yeah, I guess the waiter, told Eddie, "Oh, your thing is paid for," and I guess he asked by who, and he's like, "Oh, like I don't know yet," or something like that. So then when Louis left, the waiter told Eddie, "Oh, it was actually Louis Anderson, this comedian, this up and coming comedian. He paid your bill." And then a few weeks later, Louis gets a call from Eddie. He's like, "Hey, I want you to be in my next movie." So that's how he ended up getting this part. So it was a gamble that really paid off.
Yeah, for sure. And then I mean, he got lucky because for all he could have risen and nothing could have come out of it.
Yeah.
But wow, that was the right move at the right time.
Yeah, exactly. Or he could have ran up that bill like hell. Like they could have been getting thousands of dollars worth of shit.
Oh yeah,
and
exactly.
he would have been screwed.
For sure.
Yeah, especially, but it paid off for him. So.
And speaking of Hello Ladies earlier, something similar like that happens.
Yeah, but we'll get to that when we talk about series. When we talk about Briterion series, we're going to talk about Hello Ladies HBO series.
Yes.
Which is hilarious, but we'll get to that. So yeah, Akeem walks back into the barbershop, and it's funny because when he walks in, the Jewish guy goes, "Hey, Kunta Kinte," and then they all laugh. They're like,
which I don't know. I don't find that funny.
I think it's funny, and I mean, Eddie plays the Jewish guy, so
yeah, well, which we can say that he did pull whiteface there, which
yeah.
probably isn't that big of a deal.
Yeah, I guess not like the reverse, But what's interesting is John Amos, because Kunta Kinte is from Roots. It's from the series Roots. And John Amos, he was in Roots. He acted in Roots. He played Kunta Kinte actually, or one of his relatives. But he was in Roots. So that's a kind of funny thing. And so he comes into the barbershop and he tells them that he wants a Jerry curl, but they're like, "No, like don't get a Jerry curl. Like we like your hair the way it is. Like more kids should have your type of hair, like Dr. Martin Luther King's hair. Like just just clean cut. You know what I'm saying?" So it's kind of funny because he's doing that because he wants to be more American. He's like, "Oh, I want to be more American." And so he's trying to be more American. So then he I guess he watches some football game and then he's at McDonald's the next day cleaning in the office of Cleo, of Amos's office, and he asked him, he's like, "Did you see the American football contest last night? It was the Giants of New York versus the Packers of Green Bay." And he was like, he's going on about it, and Amos is looking at him like, "What the hell are you talking about?" And he says, "Son, if you want to keep working here, stay off the drugs." It's just
for talking about sports.
Yeah, it's funny. And Louis says, "Oh, I don't know about Africa, but the guys with money get all the chicks around here." It's just a funny little comment because I mean he really does have money.
Oh, of course.
And I'm sure in Africa or wherever, that's what people care about, especially women, I guess, But what's funny is that, so Lisa, Cleo's daughter, who Akeem likes, she gets a package delivered at home that says, it says from an admirer, not Daryl, her boyfriend, Eric LaSalle.
Yeah.
And she sees it's some diamond earrings, and these have to be like thousands of dollars, these diamond earrings. So they're kind of like, like, who's this? you know.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Arsenio fucking hates New York. He just wants to leave ASAP. You know, it's just kind of funny just to see him bitching the whole time about it. You know, and Akeem is loving it though. You know, even though it's you know, they're living like peasants. He seems to not mind.
Yeah.
So
Well, I'm sure that he wanted that change as well. Like it was all intentional on his part.
Yeah, exactly. He wanted to live like a normal person. So Lisa invites Akeem to the St. John's basketball game. So it's a college game, and they could do a double date with her sister and her, you know, Lisa and LaSalle.
Okay.
So they're at the basketball game, and LaSalle is really like antagonizing Akeem. He's like really making fun of Africa, and you know, and they do that so that you hate LaSalle. You know, like they want you to like hate him. You know, and he's like making fun of soccer, and he says like, because he says, oh, like you guys play. He says we play soccer in Africa more so. You know, and LaSalle says. You know, to me, to be a man sport, you have to use your hands, you know, like, which just shows you, like, before people in the U.S. really hated soccer. They hated it.
I don't understand why. It's like, why the sudden change?
Well, I think just globalization, you know, and like the internet and stuff. Now people are fans of it here. You know what I'm saying? But before, the people hated it. They thought it was a communist sport, you know, and that's why like
that is ridiculous.
That's why the World Cup, when it was here in '94, whatever, when it was in the U.S., like it didn't do very well because people were like, "What the hell sport is this?" Like, you know. But now it's like all the rage. You know what I'm saying? So it's just funny how times change. You know. And so there's a long ass line to the bathroom. Akeem is waiting in this long ass line. I mean, it's like USC during FYF. Like that's the type of level line, the bathroom line it is.
That's not an exaggeration. Yeah. I've been to some events where the lines are that long.
Yeah, they're hella long. And this random African guy sees him, and you know he knows him as the prince, and he's like bowing to him, and you know he wants a picture taken with him. And LaSalle and Lisa are looking at this, and they're like, "What the hell's going on here? Like, this is weird," you know. And this other African guy is there too, and they're like, "Oh yeah." And they ask him like, "Who is that?" And he says, "Oh, just some man I met in the restroom." And they're looking at him like, "What'd you guys do in there?"
Yeah.
So we're back at McDowell's, and all of a sudden we see a certain actor come in trying to rob the place with a shotgun, and that actor is Samuel L. Jackson.
Yep.
So, like I said, even in the littlest parts of this, you know, it has people who went on to be pretty well known.
Yeah. And he was already dropping F-bombs at the time.
Yeah, he already was. And it was like he's scary in the scene, and he's really robbing it, and it was like he was in Pulp Fiction. He has that same fear level, and Louis is like really slow putting all the cash in the thing, and then Akeem comes out of nowhere, and Samuel L. is like, "Who the fuck is this asshole?" He's hilarious. He's really funny.
Yeah.
But then watching the movie back, I forgot how many F-bombs are in this. I was like, wow, there's a lot more. You know, I didn't realize it was rated R.
Yeah, I don't think I ever realized that until just a few days ago.
Yeah, it's pretty.
Yeah, and and then all the profanity in it, I don't remember it having that much.
Yeah, there's a lot of F-bombs. Then they're having a party at the McDowell's house, and Akeem is the bartender, and we see LaSalle's family, and they all have Jerry curls. It's hilarious. And so Lisa's dad tells the whole crowd that LaSalle popped the question, and Lisa said yes. So, which is a lie. So then she's pissed off. She's piased, as Chris would say.
Jeez.
But then Eddie consoles her outside. They're on the swing set. It's a nice little romantic scene, actually. The red clothes, they look really good on the white snow. It's like a really nice little scene.
Nice contrast.
Yeah. It's a nice little scene, but you can tell that snow is fake because you know why? Because you don't see the breath come out. You know what I'm saying?
That's
not
true.
In that scene. You see it later on, but in that scene you don't see it. So you know that was on a set. And it's funny because the sister comes out and is like, hey, like, we need more champagne in the party, you know, and so that ends the scene, but then it kind of fades to black, and yeah, it's a nice little scene. So Akeem invites Lisa to his apartment, and he sees that when he's about to take her in, like he said he'll make her dinner or whatever, they have groceries at the door, and he looks in and he sees Semi has fixed up the place. He has a jacuzzi and a TV, and
yeah,
it looks really a lot of 80s like accoutrement. Like it's really 80s
yeah,
minimalist.
it looks nothing
Yeah.
like how I did at
Yeah,
first.
wasn't the shithole. It was like it looks not, and now it looks like the place from the people who live next to Clark Griswold in Christmas Vacation. You know what I'm saying? It looks really
Oh yeah,
80s yuppie.
oh yeah,
know?
for sure.
Um,
Another movie we have to talk about some other
yeah,
day.
exactly. Yeah, for sure. So then he's like, let's go for a walk. So they walk on the bridge, and Akeem decides to give money to some homeless guy, and it's a ton of money. And it's a nice little callback to Trading Places. So those are the guys from Trading Places, Don Amici and Ralph Bellamy. So they're from Trading Places, but at the end of the movie they go broke, so they're homeless. So it's a nice little reference to that. And it's funny. So you know, they have a nice little talk, and Lisa tells him that she likes that he's above anything petty. Like he's almost regal. Like she admires that about him. And but this shows you that this movie can't be made nowadays, because Gen Z is really petty. You know what I'm saying? They're not above pettiness. You know what I'm saying? They live for it.
What are you referring to in regards to pettiness?
I'm just saying anything in general. Like if you can, you know, call someone out on some shit or do something to screw someone over and show it on social media, like people will do it nowadays. You know what I'm saying? You know, like it would be hard to believe if they made this now to find someone who's not petty. You know what I'm saying? Like, because it's like everyone is. You know,
I suppose.
Well, and then they slow dance to this "To Be Loved" song by Jackie Wilson, and it's a great song. It reminds me of something that would be in End of the Effing World, which is a great series, like a lot of R&B doo-wop type stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Another series to talk about some
Yeah, exactly. So Semi's going home to their apartment, and he sees that Patrice, Lisa's sister, snuck in there, and she's like, what the hell? Like, why do you have all this nice stuff? You know, it's kind of like, you got some explaining to do there. So I guess he talks to her, and you know, and then at that point we see Akeem. He's really on a high. He's singing "To Be Loved," the Jackie Wilson song, and all the dogs are barking, and he's walking around, and you know, everyone's like, shut the fuck up, while he's singing the song in the streets. And he walks into his apartment, and he sees Patrice and Arsenio making out, and he's like, what the hell? So like, he's like, what the hell's going on here? And you know, and she's here, like, she's seeing all our stuff, you know what I'm saying? Like, what the hell's going on? And she says, oh, don't worry, like, he told me everything. And he's like, he did? You know, and he's like, yeah. He told me that he's a prince and you're his servant. And Eddie's like, I'm his servant. And he's like, he laughs to himself, you know. It's funny. And it's just funny because, you know, Cleo, John Amos's character, he doesn't like Akeem. You know, he keeps telling her, oh, you need to just, you know, why are you messing around with Akeem? You need to stick with LaSalle, you know. You know, he's rich, you know, he has the Soul Glow. He comes from the Soul Glow family, you know.
Yeah, he definitely has the hair.
Yeah. But little does he know about Akeem's real background, you know.
Well, that's only because Akeem hasn't said anything.
Yeah, exactly. So we see Eddie, he wants to change his apartment ASAP again, you know, because he wants to invite Lisa over and see, you know, that he's a regular guy, supposedly. So they talk to the landlord, and he's like, hey, can we switch apartments with you? And he's like, yeah. And he's like, does it, you know, but is it a normal apartment? And he's like, yeah, you're going to love it. It's a real shithole. So then, yeah, they do switch apartments. And Eddie's Akeem's family gets word that what's going on over there. They're kind of taking too long in New York, so we see them. They're driving through New York with limos, and we hear the serious music, and they have like a police escort, and then the car stops, and then the flower girls are there, and they're throwing out the pedals, and then we see James Earl Jones step out of the limo, and they walk into the barbershop, and it's funny because the barber's like, "Who the hell is this?" He looks out the window like, "Who the fuck is that?" And he tells them he's looking for Akeem, and the Jewish guy is like, "Oh, Kunta Kinte," and they're like, "Oh, he lives on the 5th floor." And then so they walk out, and the barber's like, "Who the hell's gonna pick all this shit up?" Like all the leaves on the floor. So they go up to that apartment that he lives in, and he sees Semi is there, but he's not there. But then he sees on the wall that it says Employee of the Month.
Ooh,
and it shows Akeem there, and they're like, "What the fuck's this?" And oh, it's not Semi. It's the because they switched apartments, so the landlord is there.
Oh yeah.
So the landlord is there, like, and James Earl Jones is like, "What the hell is this?" And the landlord's like, "Oh, I think he works there." And he's like, "My son works." Like, what the hell? He's all pissed off. So and then we see Lisa and Akeem at the museum, and they're seeing artifacts from Africa, and then we see artifacts from Zamunda, and then out of nowhere he just kisses her really abruptly, and she's like, "Oh wow," like she liked it, but she wasn't expecting it.
Yeah, well, that's only because there was a portrait of him with the royal family, and he didn't want her to see it.
Yeah, exactly. A nice little scene there.
Yeah.
And then it's funny. Amos is in his office, and he gets a call, and he has the hamburger phone from Juno that she had.
Well, yeah, which Phil that and Juno, they were trying way too hard to be cool with that.
Yeah.
But I think it was way more fitting in the sense that McDowell serves burgers.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It makes sense that they had a burger phone.
It was more organic than Juno. Juno was trying to be too hipsterish about it.
Way more.
So and then Eddie's family comes into their house, and they tell Amos that they're looking for the prince, and they're like, "What prince?" And he's like, "Oh, well, Akeem." And he's like, "He's a prince?" And he's like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Okay, for your trouble," and they tip him $100 bill, and he can see that Akeem is on the bill. Akeem's face is on the bill. And he's like, now he's all excited. Now Amos is like, "Oh my god!"
Like now he prefers him over this other guy.
Over LaSalle's ass. Yeah. Now all of a sudden he likes Akeem. So Lisa and Akeem come back from their date, and Akeem sees the pedals on the floor, and so he's like, "Oh shit!" He's freaking out. He's like, "Oh, these pedals, that all can only mean one thing." So and that scene, we can see that it's really cold, because you can see the breaths coming out in that scene. And so Akeem stalls, and he says they should go to her house, but then Amos is all happy to see him now. He comes in, and he's like, "Oh," like he's trying to be all charming with him now. Now he likes him. And so Amos calls, the King's hotel, and tells them that Akeem is there. So, and Eric LaSalle knocks on the door, and he sees it, and he just slams the door in his face. Amos slams the door in his face, and he comes back and tells Lisa, because Lisa's like, "Who is that?" And he's like, "Oh, it's Jehovah's Witness."
Sure, at that time.
Yeah, and he keeps slamming the door in LaSalle's face, and he's like, "Oh, she doesn't like you anymore," or whatever. And LaSalle's like shocked. He can't believe it. And Amos reveals to Lisa that Akeem is really rich, And he's like, your little goat herder makes Daryl look like a welfare case. That's what he says to him. And, but now, obviously it's kind of a cliche, the fact. So Lisa's upset that Akeem lied to her about the whole thing, you know what I'm saying? Yet, obviously, Akeem wanted her to like him for him, not for his money, So it's a little communication breakdown there.
Yeah, for sure.
And see, that's another difference between nowadays, you know what I'm saying? Because nowadays, people want to show how rich they are, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's how you get the girl now, is by showing off your money. You know what I'm saying? You buy them fucking Teslas and stupid shit like that. You know what I'm saying? That's how you get the girl nowadays.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
I feel that now with time, people have become more superficial.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
And greedier.
Yeah, so like nowadays, their money is the only shit they have to stand on. Not like then. The whole thing was that he didn't want to show he has money. You know what I'm saying? Like, he wanted her to love him for who he was, not his money.
He was really testing her more than anything.
Yeah, exactly. But it just shows a big difference between the mentality. You know what I'm saying?
For sure.
And it's funny how Amos is like, oh, I don't know whether to bow or whether to shake your hand. He's like, I feel like breakdancing. Just breakdancing was popular at the time, and he tells the queen, he was like, try the lazy boy, like that's very 80s.
Oh
the
yeah,
lazy
of
boy.
Course. Which I don't. Do people even buy those nowadays?
I feel like
they were going bankrupt.
Something. Probably not. I mean, they probably aren't around anymore. It was a big thing in the 80s and early 90s, though. People were all about the lazy boy. And so we see Lisa in her bedroom, and she's kind of nervous, like, oh, what do I do? And she has a nice little bedroom, actually. They did a good job with the production design.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I like the New Yorker poster there. And so the king, James Earl Jones, tells Lisa that Akeem is about to get married in Africa, actually. He's, supposed to get married to that chick from the beginning with all the dancers and stuff.
Yeah, but he's not even interested in her.
Yeah. And, but, when Lisa hears that, she's pissed and she's sad.
Well, she believes everything he told her.
Yeah. Yeah. And then when her father, Amos, finds out about that, and James Earl Jones basically, disses Lisa, saying that, she's not on the level of Akeem anyway. And Amos gets pissed off, and you would think that he'd be a slave to the money and just be trying to kiss his ass, but he's like, hey, I don't care who the hell you are. I'm going to break my foot in your royal ass. So he says that. So he gets pissed off, and he stands up for his daughter. So it's nice to see him do that. And Patrice, the sister, comes in and she sees the argument. She's like, what's going on here? Like, what the hell's all this arguing? And we see Eddie and Arsenio come in, and she thought that Arsenio was the prince, and they're like, no, Akeem is the prince, and she's like, why does Lisa always get the good ones?
Yeah. But she's all crying about it.
Yeah, it's a nice little twist. So then Akeem finds Lisa on the subway, and he explains the situation to her, and he apologizes, and the people around, they're kind of like, give him a chance, like he seems sincere, but she's kind of like, she says, I don't know what to do. And you're kind of left wondering what's going to happen, Yeah. Because Lisa, she says, I'm sorry, but I can't. That's what she says. And she walks away, and Akeem gives the ring to a little old lady. She's like, I'll marry you. And so he gives her the ring, and the subway leaves, and he's sad, so we kind of don't know what's going to happen there, and we see the Waldorf Astoria, and they leave, and then we see them in Africa, and and he's about to get married. It's his wedding day. We see, all the people there, thousands of people. He's at the altar, and we see his bride walking in with his long ass train,
and the veil. So you at first can't tell who she actually is.
Yeah, you don't know who it is. And the bride walks up to him, and he opens the veil, and it's Lisa.
Yeah.
And he didn't expect that, and everyone's happy. He's happy. And then John Amos comes out like, hey, I'm here, by the way. He comes out standing next to James Earl Jones and the Queen. And it's a nice happy ending. And then like he just starts kissing her right away, and the chubby dude, the liaison's like, he's like, we haven't come to that part yet, but they keep kissing, and the rousing music. It's a beautiful ending, and they ride off in the car,
Yeah.
and she asks him, would you really have given this all up for me? And he says, of course. If you want, we can give it up right now. And she's like, nah. So yeah, and the movie ends, and I really like the end credits. How we see all the actors' names and little shots from the movie. It's kind of similar to Predator.
Yeah.
I love how one of the flower girls' names is Feather. Like her name is Feather. Like
Yeah. Well, I wonder why that was her name.
Maybe she was like a Prince girl or something. How they always had names, and it's a cool end theme. The oh say can you see coming to America. And he even mentions Tijuana in the song. That's cool.
Yeah.
He says that.
Yes. Unexpected but cool.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, so like the movies that made us did a really good episode on this. You guys should watch that. The makeup in this was off the chain. That was Rick Baker, who's a genius. He's a genius when it comes to makeup, and he's done a lot. Like he did the American Werewolf in London transformation scene. That was like the first time you ever saw like a dope ass transformation werewolf scene like that. Landis and Eddie were they were getting along at first, but then they got into a big fight on set, and I guess Eddie like choked out Landis at one point. Like he was choking him, like Latrell Sprewell was choking out PJ Carlissimo. Like it got physical. So
yeah, but why do you need to escalate things so
I don't
quickly?
know. They had a falling out, and I guess Landis left the set for a while because of this. And he said, I quit, basically. Like, he was going to leave the movie. But then his lawyer told him, if you quit, the studio won't pay you. So he was like, shit, I need to go back. And the writers of the script, and they also worked with Eddie on SNL, they were kind of like the diplomats of the movie. So they went to Landis and said, oh, Eddie apologized, which wasn't true. They just said that.
Just to make him feel better.
Yeah, and so he's like, okay, so he came back to the set after they said that. And I guess Landis went to Eddie's bus. He didn't have a trailer. He had like a tour bus, He went to his bus and said, hey, okay, we'll finish the movie, but we're no longer friends. And Eddie was like, I'm fine with that. So they did the movie, and they kind of did it. They had to shoot the rest of the film by like not talking directly to each other, which is crazy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like they would exchange messages from other people in like a roundabout way. It's pretty ridiculous. It was kind of like when LeBron came back to the Cavs, and like he hated the owner, but he still played for the team for some damn reason. And like he would never talk to the owner, but he still played. It was weird.
It is really weird.
And there was a point where Eddie didn't want to be in LA because of some Nostradamus documentary that he saw that was directed by Orson Welles, or it was like hosted by Orson Welles. I actually saw this documentary. It was on they would show it on History Channel a lot back in the day, and you can probably find it on YouTube now. But it was cool. It was cheesy but cool. And I guess watching that, Eddie got freaked out. I was like, shit, I can't be in LA because Nostradamus said there's gonna be an earthquake or something at that time or something. So they needed him to like reshoot something in LA, but he wasn't there at the time. So after the whole thing, the earthquake was supposed to happen at a certain time, but it didn't happen. So Eddie was like, okay, I'll go to LA. So he finally went to LA after that. It's pretty ridiculous. So like I said, yeah, Paula Abdul did the choreography for the dance scene, which was great. And I think Paula Abdul has some great songs. Straight Up is still a banger, I think. I love that song.
It's a classic.
Yeah.
For sure.
And she has like at least 5 or 6 good songs in her career. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but it seems like most people only remember that song for whatever reason.
Yeah, I would say it's her best song, even though she has. I think people think of her like she's a one-hit wonder when she has more than that. And Arsenio was in the video for Straight Up. It was like he was co-signing her, kind of, And I guess that end theme and some of the other music in the movie, I guess Nile Rodgers did it. Nile Rodgers from Chic, which Nile Rodgers, he's a fucking genius. You should watch his Red Bull Music Academy.
Yeah, great musician. Sure.
Yeah, great producer. If you get a chance, go on YouTube and watch Nile Rodgers' Red Bull Music Academy. It's a great interview with him. It's really long, and you learn all about his life and his production, and he's brilliant. I guess the worldwide gross for this movie was $350 million, which is pretty
good for the time.
Yeah, it says here on Wikipedia, the film made $128,152,301 in the U.S. and ended up with a worldwide total of 288, even though it's a 350 million. It was the highest earning film that year for the studio and the third highest grossing film in the United States box office that year. And Landis, in that the movies that made us, he said this was the first hit movie in Japan that had a black actor in it. So that's pretty groundbreaking. So Eddie was on one of our, like I told you, so him and Eddie and Landis had a falling out, during this. And Eddie went on Arsenio Hall show one time, a few years after, and he asked, like, oh, are you going to work with John Landis ever again? You've had some pretty good movies with him,
Yeah.
And Eddie said Landis had a better shot at working with Jason Lee's dad than he did. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's
a weird thing
to
say.
That's a pretty bad joke.
Yeah.
But they ended up working together again, because I guess Eddie called Landis to see if he wanted to direct Beverly Hills Cop 3 because they didn't have anybody else, and Landis said, yeah, sure. So they reunited for that, and Landis says he loves Eddie, supposedly. So it would have been great to see them do more stuff, because I think they have a really good chemistry, as far as director-actor.
Yeah.
And I guess there was supposed to be a spin-off series of this. Like they'd shot a pilot for it in 1989, but I guess it wasn't picked up, which kind of surprises me. I thought they definitely would have wanted it.
Maybe they just felt that it wasn't working out as a show.
I guess not. I haven't seen the sequel yet. I mean, even though DJ Vlad, if you know him, he said it's even better than the original, which I highly doubt. But
yeah, I heard mixed reviews of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know.
I don't know if I ever will see the sequel. We'll see. Anything else on Coming to America, Aileen?
Well, I did want to mention something about how they really show that being a royal family and how rich they are, that they exaggerate on some things. Like we mentioned earlier on the exaggeratedly long dining table. And how they use the intercoms to communicate because they're each sitting on the opposite end of the table. And because of, it's like probably like a 40-meter long table. I don't know. That's just my estimate. But to be able to hear each other, they use the intercom. And it's like the ridiculous thing where you would see like really rich people do, and even in other shows or movies. So yeah, I found that very interesting, and I'm stealing that idea for a future project that I have, which I've been prolonging, but I do want to see that get done sometime.
Yeah, we'll make it happen.
Yeah.
All right, well, that was Coming to Americana. Now, Briterion Bollection.
And why the name change for it?
I don't know. I just like to do that, just to be stupid.
I can tell.
Great. Okay. Well, thanks for joining me, Aileen, on this episode.
Yeah, thanks for having me again.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time. Bye.